You may not realize it, but you are currently funding some dangerous people. They are indoctrinating young minds throughout the West with their resentment-ridden ideology.
You also may not realize it, but you're currently watching a video primarily funded by the Wilkes brothers, two of the richest freaking people in the United States. The Wilkes brothers made their money mostly from fracking. That's the stuff that does this right here. But don't worry about that. You know, a little explosive contaminants in the water supply never hurt anybody, I think. But anyhow.
They have made it their life's mission to undermine Western civilization itself, which they regard as corrupt, oppressive, and patriarchal.
And hey, speaking of undermining Western civilization and stuff, the Wilkes brothers are members of the Assembly of Yahweh Seventh-day Church, a Messianic Israelite church that takes the Bible literally, both historically and scientifically, even to the point where they think that homosexuality and abortion should be convictable crimes, even in cases of rape and incest. Ferris is a pastor there who has said that homosexuality is a perversion tantamount to bestiality, and Dan has been quoted as saying, "I just think we have to make people aware, you know? And bring the Bible back into the school."
If you're a taxpayer or paying for your kid's liberal arts degree, you're underwriting this gang of nihilists. You're supporting ideologues who claim that all truth is subjective, that all sex differences are socially constructed, and that Western imperialism is the sole source of all third world problems.
Oh, totally, Georgie P. That was so right on the freaking money there. Just about every learning institution in America are a pack of crazed nihilists. Yes, they're all nihilists. They all think objective truth is about as valuable as a jar of Play-Doh. They think things like penises and vaginas are just a product of mass hysteria. These universities are just a Maoist playground for authoritarians that want to demolish the West like this mannequin head in a hydraulic press right here. Nah, what Peterson is saying here is not the least bit overstated, melodramatic, or reminiscent of McCarthy-esque Cold War-era propaganda at all.
And that Western imperialism is the sole source of all third world problems.
See what I mean? That's not at all McCarthy-esque in its totally over-the-top way in which it broadly paints hundreds of thousands of students and educators as essentially a bunch of Stalin-loving, America-hating commies. And believe me, he's just getting started with that stuff.
They are the postmodernists, pushing progressive activism at a college near you.
Okay, we're going to come back to that, but first I'd like to backtrack to something our lobster-loving friendo said right here, but only after you've had enough time to properly soak in this gif of giant lobsters dancing into a courtroom. I'll give you a second with this one because there's a lot going on here. Takes a moment to truly soak in its magnificence.
You're supporting ideologues who claim that all truth is subjective.
Oh, that line right there deserves its own dance party. That line right there deserved its own dance party, cause holy crap, this is truly a golden nugget that both Peterson and Prager U has bestowed upon the internet here. Or I don't know, maybe it's more of a glowing caramelized turd. But the real point here is that Jordan Peterson complaining about ideologues that are supposedly claiming that truth is subjective on Prager U's YouTube channel of all places isn't even remotely ironic, considering that Prager U, which is, not an actual university, by the way, in case you didn't know that, they are pretty notorious for being, let's say, rather creative with their interpretation of the truth, disputing the scientific consensus on man-made climate change, for instance, the Big Bang Theory. They dispute the separation between church and state and claim that America is not a secular nation, which, hey, you know, as a cat that was zapped by God through the internet, that's pretty huge if true. They often recycle all sorts of super-duper sciencey sounding arguments for the existence of God that have in no way been thoroughly refuted countless times before. Its founder, James Prager, has this to say on evolution.
The science on evolution is not nearly as established as people think it is.
They argue that America is the world's most prosperous nation when, hey, here's all the debt America's currently accumulating in real time. Then there's also the fact that Peterson himself spent 2 hours on Sam Harris's podcast struggling to twist the very nature of truth to fit his very subjective freaking interpretation of it. You know, I could probably go on for about like another hour about all of this, but I think I've made my point here abundantly freaking clear. It's honestly not even what the video is about, to tell you the truth, so let's start getting there.
They are the postmodernists, pushing progressive activism at a college near you. They produce the mobs that violently shut down campus speakers, the language police who enshrine into law use of fabricated gender pronouns.
You know what, guys? I'm sorry, I lied. My worthless human slave especially would ideally like to devote a significant freaking portion of this video to points like this and explain in depth how, although our campuses have their fair share of freaking problems, the news fans aren't there like 99.9% of the time, and usually things are more like this, then this, or this. He'd also like to explain for the 50 billionth time how countless legal scholars agree that Peterson got Bill C-16 totally freaking wrong, which is what he's referring to right here. So in retrospect, this part is kind of colossally freaking stupid. Ideally, he'd like to tackle Peterson's straw cat characterizations of this stuff right here. Oh no! Diversity, equity, and inclusion, anything but that! He'd like to address the numerous ways in which the freaking right are sometimes hostile to free speech that Jordan never seems to mention, including the myriad of crazy crap Trump has said which clearly violates free speech principles, the fact that his own supposed free speech champion peers have in fact at times endorsed the same tactics he decries in this very video, like Milo right here.
Actually, I want to make these people terrified of appearing in public. I want to disrupt every speech they ever give. Every time a university has a commencement address by Linda Sarsour, I want her booed into oblivion. I want her incapable of completing her speech.
He'd also like to discuss the fact that although Jordan insists the left runs from debate, friends of his like David Rubin often refuse to do so with worthwhile opponents.
Have you challenged Rubin to a debate, Sam?
Oh, yeah. I will reiterate that I will debate Dave Rubin in any context, on any show, in any medium, or any place at any time.
And that Peterson even went as far to say that no Marxist is willing to debate him.
No, they don't debate me. No. I haven't, because people don't do it. They don't ask me to do it.
When he had already had a pending debate with quasi-Marxist writer Douglas Lane.
Since then, I've been tweeting at Peterson to remind him of our upcoming conversation, but I have yet to hear back from him or his team about a specific date.
He'd also like to discuss the fact that Jordan has deplatformed speakers himself at free speech events, no less, when their ties to neo-Nazis were exposed, which Vadim actually thinks is a perfectly legitimate thing to do, but he finds Peterson's rationalization of this pretty ridiculous.
Well, what happened in the podcast?
Well, what happened was, in my estimation, was that she didn't properly fulfill her role as critical journalist. What I mean by that is she didn't ally herself with any of the purported aims of the neo-Nazi people she was talking to.
We know that the cultural Marxists own the media. We know that they own academia, etc., and they're pushing a particular narrative. And I will say this, I do not think it is outside of the realm of what's possible that within the next 5 to 10 years we will, probably closer to 5, we will have alt-right men and women running for political office. Yes.
What I mean by that is she didn't ally herself with any of the purported aims of the neo-Nazi people she was talking to, but I think she failed to criticize them sufficiently. She didn't ask the tough questions.
So exclude Faith Goldie, who totally wasn't cozying up to those Nazis there, from a free speech event.
Rock and roll, baby. Freedom of speech.
And yet somehow it's totally cool for Peterson to appear on the Reality Calls podcast with white nationalist Tara McCarthy, where curiously Peterson neglected to ask any tough questions about her illustrious collection of Pizzagate videos. Unfortunately, she hadn't yet likened interracial sex with bestiality at that point, so we didn't get to see Peterson ask any tough questions about that one either. But hey, ladies, ain't nothing wrong with a little of that every now and then. Yeah! Oh. So yes, look, Vadim would like to address the ridiculous over-the-top cultural Marxist conspiracy theories laden in this video and more, but we're not really gonna talk about all of that. Partially because my human slave is a freaking butt-brained idiot with butts and asses for brains and his brain is a butt, and I, being the Lord's chosen cat, don't really agree with him on any of that, but mostly because that's not what this video is about. Here is what this freaking video is about. This video is about lines like this.
You may not realize it, but you are currently funding some dangerous people.
And this.
If you're a taxpayer or paying for your kid's liberal arts degree, you're underwriting this gang of nihilists. You're supporting ideologues.
And this.
And now we rack up education-related debt.
The purpose of lines like these is simply to get you, as a taxpayer, angry. I'll freaking explain, but I think it's about time you know. This video isn't really about Peterson at all. But we do have this video coming up soon, so make sure and stay tuned for that. No. This video is about Prager U. Remember our friends, the Welks brothers?
They're being taught the gay agenda every day out in the world. So we have to stand up and explain to them that that's not real, and that's not proper, it's not right.
I just think we have to make people aware, and bring the Bible back into the school and start teaching our kids at a younger age.
Well, they're just two of many billionaires pouring money into freaking outfits like Turning Point USA and Prager U to make the American education system seem like an intellectual cesspool that'll suck your youth's brains out of their skulls and throw them into a vat of flaming pee and poop. And they're not just talking about our college campuses, but our high schools and grade schools too. On Prager U, you can find countless videos demonizing our public schools, how the teachers' unions and our teachers are basically evil, self-serving jerks that could care less about our children's education, and extolling the virtues of school choice. Sounds pretty awesome, doesn't it? I mean, who wouldn't want their kids to have a choice between this school and this one? Well, if you think that sounds cool, you're not the only one. Secretary of Education Betsy Devos thinks so too.
Would you be so kind as to tell us how much money your family has contributed to the Republican Party over the years?
I wish I could give you that number. I don't know.
I have heard the number was $200 million. Does that sound in the ballpark?
Collectively, between
over
my
the years,
entire
yes.
family, that's possible.
The DeVos family hasn't just given millions to the Republican Party, by the way. They're also a chief donor to Turning Point USA, home of everybody's favorite giant with the shrinking face, Charlie Kirk, and Candace Owens, both of whom have made Prager U videos too.
Dear celebrities, we do not care what you think.
Whoopie-doo-scoop. Scoop-dee-dee-whoop.
I can tell you that Kanye has a wonderful, beautiful vision for the future of America.
When you hear about slavery for 400 years, for 400 years, that sounds like a choice.
Do you feel that I'm being free and I'm thinking free?
Incidentally, although I'm totally down with how red pill woke Kanye is these days, I will be suing him for ripping off the name of my kitty litter brand. Anyhow, the reason why DeVos, Prager U, and lots of Republicans like school choice so much is because primarily it does these three things. 1, it allows more federal funding to go to religious schools. 2, it defunds our public school system by diverting those much-needed funds to other sources, which will eventually screw them big time and basically throw them into that vat of fiery pee and poop. And 3, once those schools are sufficiently crippled, more private companies can swoop in and scoop them up.
Whoopie-doo-scoop. Scoop-dee-dee-whoop.
And then privatize the public school system, basically turning our children into products that big freaking business can turn into big freaking bucks.
If you actually really care about the children, then you have to make sure that teachers are taken care of. Because doesn't it make more sense that a teacher will be more effective if he or she doesn't have to take on a second job and be extra tired and worn out in the classroom? Doesn't it make more sense that if you care about the students, you would make sure that you don't continuously cut education funding and funnel that money to private charter schools? So once she gets you to think that public schools are failing, then she's going to get in and try to push for charter schools and private schools so that way her rich friends can make money off of it.
Now, depending on how you look at all that, that may not be all that awesome. But come on, look at this. Ben Shapiro's website, The Daily Wire, has this article right here explaining why good teachers want school choice. Oh, look, it's actually about a Prager U video. Do you think that could be because the Wilkes brothers actually owned The Daily Wire too? Nah, that'd be too much of a total lack of coincidence. I'll tell you, there's a lot of interviews with people that hate teachers unions here on Prager U. But you know what there isn't much of? Interviews with actual public school teachers. But here's one, responding to this guy's Prager U video right here.
The purpose of a union is to represent the job interests of its members. And these interests are simply not the same.
You just had the nerve to directly say that the interests of students are not in line with the interests of teachers. If you think teachers aren't prepared to make sacrifices for their students, then pay a visit to any public school in this country on a weekday around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, sometimes later. Show up an hour before the first bell rings for class to begin. Stroll by on a Saturday. You'll find degree-holding professionals who could be making double or triple their salaries, who are working above and beyond their contracted hours because it's a joke to think that teachers can do all that's required of them in a 40-hour work week. Do bad teachers exist? Absolutely. And they're public enemy number one of the average and good teachers who make tremendous personal sacrifices because they're more interested in their students' futures than what many of their students or their parents are in their own futures. Oh, but do go on and tell us how the teachers' unions and teachers whose interests aren't aligned with those students are the things holding back the system.
Sounds like a good-for-nothing student-hating jerk to me. But hey, guys, you know me. I'm a born-again Seventh-day Evangelical Anglo-Saxon Pentecostal Greco-Roman Presbyterian Orthodox Shodomitarian. So obviously I'm gonna love all this crap. I mean, this works out really well for me. But you know, you'd think that the people who are so obsessed with the academic futures of our youth, like Jordan Peterson, Christina Hoff Summers, David Rubin, for example, would be speaking out even just a little bit against Betsy Devos, since enacting the policies she favors could literally cripple, if not eventually destroy, the American public school system. So let's just take a little look at their Twitter here. Okay, Twitter advanced search, at Jordan Peterson, DeVos. Nothing. All right, well, at Rubin Report, nothing. What an unexpected turn of events. All right, well, Christina Hoff Summers. Ooh, lots of glowing compliments on really just one thing she did almost a year ago. Well, maybe that's because she's part of a conservative Koch brothers-funded think tank, so we'll give her a pass on that. You know who else is primarily funded by the Koch brothers? Turning Point USA! They even have their own National School Choice Week and everything. Look at that. And wow, a memo was just leaked recently from a conservative students group warning other students to stay away from Turning Point USA for unethical practices like illegally funneling money into student elections and inflating their numbers to mislead donors. That's a former Turning Point employee saying that, sad to say, he can confirm everything in this freaking memo is true. Yeesh. Wouldn't want to be Mr. Shrinkface right about now, that's for sure. But hey, look, you and I, we're buddies. I mean, chances are you're probably gonna burn in hell like these nihilists right here, but we're cool. So I'm just gonna let you in on a little secret. Most of these people do not give a fuck about freedom of speech or expression. Because if they did, you'd think that they'd mention at least once the literal hundreds of religious colleges and universities across America that have incredibly restrictive speech codes. In literally hundreds of them, you can't say so much as fuck, shit, motherfucker, asshole, piss, or any of those other words that probably have already gotten this video demonetized. Oh, and by the way, these schools accept Pell Grants. They're also nonprofits, which means that when they restrict freedom of speech, they do so with taxpayer assistance. Many don't even allow jeans or hair to grow past a certain length. That's pretty bad news for Mullet Guy.
Rock and roll, baby. Freedom of speech.
Seriously though, guys, this is a problem. Way over 100 of these schools are Title IX exempt, which means that they can expel you if you're gay, for fornicating, especially for fornicating while gay. They could discriminate against women, fire professors just for disagreeing about stuff, and all without jeopardizing their federal freaking funding. Now look, don't get me wrong, I love it. They're just observing their holy text, right? I mean, personally, I think they should be able to stone students to death for working on the Sabbath. I mean, it says that in Leviticus, right? But, you know, if you are worried about the free speech, it's not really much of a win for the marketplace of ideas now, is it? So, hey, free speech warriors, you gotta speak up about this. Okay. Now look, my human slave just wants me to add a little something here. I don't really agree with it, but it's just really hard for me to open those cans of Fancy Feast without him, so I kind of feel obliged. Are there problems in academia and our public schools? Of course. I mean, there are some really stupid things that go on. I mean, just really dumb. I don't even get it. So, hey, you know, criticism is definitely more than warranted. But just freaking recognize that there are very well-funded propaganda apparatuses in place that are there to make truckloads of cash off students, to foster an overwhelming and irrational fear of the left, and gain votes through stoking that fear in the process.
You may not realize it, but you are currently funding some dangerous people.
And you may not realize it, but the real dangerous people here are Prager U.
Thank you for watching this video. To help keep
Creationist Cat
videos free, please consider
becoming Creationist Cat's patron on Patreon. It's really awesome and you should do it. Listen to me. I'm Jordan Peterson. I love Creationist Cat. Definitely my favorite thing on YouTube. Got like 8 of his t-shirts. This one right here is my favorite. Oh, it feels so nice and snuggly. Links to all those things down below in the Christ box. Best Christ box on the internet. Goodbye.
Jesus!